everyone, and welcome to another Camera Jabber video. Today I'm speaking to Amy Shaw, who's probably best known as an automotive photographer, but she's also a Nikon Ambassador and shoots a wide range of photographic subjects. Hi Amy, how are you?
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It looks like you're having a nice day there, weather-wise.
Yes, it's lovely. Lovely being in the Oxfordshire countryside and no, quite enjoying the lockdown so far.
I think, yeah, it probably is a little bit easier if you're out in the countryside, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, I feel sorry for people who live in cities like London, but hopefully we're going to be coming out of the harshness of the lockdown soon. So yeah, fingers crossed.
That'd be nice. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. So you said you would like to speak to us today about a picture that you captured at Goodwood Revival.
Yes, absolutely. This is one of my favorite shots I've probably ever taken. I use it on various postcards and business cards, and it's one of those shots where you think, yep, this is those kind of the ones that you think, yeah, this will go in the lifetime portfolio.
Right. Did you know that when you took it? Did you get that sort of feeling?
Yeah, I think I did, because I think so what happened is I heard it first. I mean, it'll make more sense when we see it. But yeah, it was, as I was taking it, I thought, yes, this is one of those shots. And that's why I took it on the two cameras that I had on me at the time with different focal lengths. And yeah, it was one of those, like, make sure I nail this right now.
Great. Well, would you like to share the image then so people can see what you're talking about?
Absolutely. Let me share my screen. So yeah, this is it.
That is a fantastic image. I love the atmosphere in it.
Yeah, it's so basically, if you want, I can talk about how this image started off and then a bit more about it.
I think that would be great. Thank you.
So at the time, I was actually talking to a friend of mine around the corner from this moment, and we were in conversation. We hadn't seen each other for a while, and then this engine started on one of the cars. And it stopped our conversation short because we literally couldn't hear each other. And you're just kind of like, yeah, I'll speak to you in a bit. I'm just going to go see what that noise is, kind of mouthed. I went around the corner of the paddock and saw literally this moment, you know, exhaust fumes filling the paddock where all the cars were, and this beautiful, harsh light that was kind of coming across. And yeah, that was it. I was just like, grabbed my first camera. And then I think the first one I automatically go for is so on my right hip, I usually wear my Nikon D850 with my Nikon 35mm 1.4 lens on the side. So that's my go-to. So I was like, oh, okay, grab that. I took a couple of frames of that. And then I thought, oh, while I've got time, because the smoke is lingering. And when I say got time, I mean like, you know, it had gone on longer than a second. I thought, I've got my second I can work for. Got my D5 with the 85mm on and snapped this. And I'm really glad I did that, because this was shot on the 85 and I much prefer it to the 35 ones. And at the same time, there are about 4 or 5 other photographers that had somehow gone next to me, or at least we'd all appeared at this moment at the same time, and we were all capturing this same shot. But yeah, it was awesome to be able to see this and yeah, capture it.
Yeah. And I mean, given that there were a few photographers around you, it's great that the people in it haven't noticed. I guess they perhaps couldn't hear the clacking cameras because of the noise of the car. But I love the attention that they're giving to their task.
Yep. I mean, at this point of the morning at Goodwood Revival, a lot of people are just testing their cars. I think this was because the light is so beautiful and kind of like not high, but not also low. It was maybe about 9:30 in the morning. And that would be like the earliest that they're allowed to try their cars out and to get them kind of revved up and for noise reasons. So yeah, they are so focused because they're probably one of the first people that are going to be out on track. And they're like, we've got to make sure that this car is ready to go and race. And they had no idea that I took this photograph until, I don't know, maybe 6 months, a year later. And then one of the guys actually approached me or emailed me and said, oh, hey, you took this photo of us. And it turns out that, you know, they work at Bicester Heritage, which is just, you know, 10 minutes down the road from where I live myself now. And it's awesome to be able to meet the people that you take these once in a lifetime shots of, because sometimes you won't know who they are, or it'll be that, you know, you'll never see them again. So that's a really special one to now know the people that are in this photograph.
Yeah. And would you say you have captured the scene as you actually saw it, or have you captured it as you saw it in your mind's eye, if you know what I mean?
I captured this as I saw it. If I could recreate it and actually, you know, set it up and have it something that I thought about and thought, yes, this is the kind of image I want, there are definitely some things I would change. And I hope that there's certain bits that you can criticize in the image to be able to see that it is just that moment. So for example, the guy that's standing behind the driver, I would love to change his sunglasses because they're not quite period. And then also, if you sometimes actually with this picture, I produced this picture as one of my favorite prints as well, a limited edition print. And I think in that print, I crop it slightly to crop out the person on the right, who is another photographer, and you can just see them bending over. So I've got mainly their bum in the photo.
Oh my God. I can't say I noticed.
That's good. It took me a little while to notice, because I think when you first look at this picture, your eyes are drawn to the driver with the highlights on him, and which is exactly obviously what I saw and what I wanted to capture. And it's only afterwards when you really start picking, but like, oh, I could have done that better. I could have done that better. So yeah, but I mean, as this is the image, you know, not out of camera, but out of camera with a grading on it, and practically as it is. I've not really twiddled with this in Photoshop at all, other than a simple grading. I've not kind of brought out any highlights. This was as we saw it. And yeah, it's great to be able to look back at the images and see the selection of shots from both cameras over this, I don't know how long it would have been, literally maybe 30-second period, just to be able to see the smoke and the exhaust fumes unfolding, because there's a couple of shots before this shot where the exhaust fumes are really like almost too much in the image, and this was maybe the third shot in where it kind of just began to clear and you could just see these highlights a bit crisper, and I thought, yes, that is the one.
And you said you had a 35mm on your D850, and you've got it was 85 on your D5. That's quite a common combination for weddings. Do you find that a good sort of combination for shooting events like this then?
So I started out shooting weddings. That's how I started my photography career. So I think that automatically got kind of merged over when I went from weddings to cars. And I honestly find it perfect for these kind of events. The only problem with that setup in events like this is that sometimes it would be nice to have something a little bit longer, like a 70-200, especially, you know, shooting track stuff. But because track kind of photography isn't my my speciality, it's not necessarily my greatest interest, it doesn't bother me that much. The 85mm is plenty long enough for when I want to sit on the chicane and, you know, capture a few dynamic cars. But so in terms of covering events, for me, the 35 and the 85 are the spot on lenses. They are what I go to nearly every single shoot, and especially every event. Sometimes if you're on a road trip or something like that, something slightly wider, like a 24 can go well with the 70-200, but events for me, 35, 85.
And now that you've mentioned weddings, or I mentioned it first, but now we've mentioned weddings, I can see kind of a wedding style in this, if you know what I mean. It's composed in it's quite a romantic looking image, isn't it? Even though it's three guys playing with a car, there is a romanticism about it.
Well, that's exactly it. Like when I first figured out my own photography style and what I liked, everything I wanted to represent in my images was this rose tinted glasses, romantic look of a special day. And to kind of merge that across to the automotive world, I carried it with me. And for everybody, or at least the people that I know and I'm friends with and myself in this car world, we still have that romantic look of these days. And, you know, Revival especially has this nostalgia, and people do really love the event. There's no, you know, bright fluorescent jackets all the time that a lot of circuits have, or everybody looks beautiful, and it's just such a pretty event as well. There's this element of just romance in the air, not necessarily for human to human, but humans to racing, and, you know, just that love of cars and what we do, really.
I've only been once to the Goodwood Revival, and I have to say, it is the place you go and you just see everybody smiling. Everybody has a really nice time.
Yes, I think there's something about, you know, dressing up, and you kind of feel a bit, to be able to dress up into costume is an element of vulnerability. I think you're kind of putting yourself out there as someone you're not used to being, and you haven't got the confidence to be wearing a 50s dress, or, you know, something that's quite tight in your waist, or flat caps or whatever. And to have everybody in this kind of feeling, you're like, oh, hey, you're dressed up too, I'm dressed up too. And it's not even taking into account the cars and the racing side of things. When I went to the revival for the very first time, I wasn't into cars. I wasn't doing this job professionally at all. And my dad just said to me, you are shooting weddings, you love atmosphere, you'll really like the revival. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll come along. And yeah, that's how it started, really.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, my dad's an artist himself, so he's always looking for light and interesting light. And he'll, I've talked about him quite a lot in previous kind of conversations, because he is such an inspiration to me, and also the way that he looks and taught me to look at light. And we would literally be walking down the street together, and if it was like a low evening sun, he'd be like, oh, look at that, the nice light in those top windows. And you're like, oh yeah, that's nice. Or we'd, again, usually walking around the streets, look down like an alley, and you'd see a chef having a cigarette or something. And you're like, oh, that's a nice shot. And you just kind of, he would just be like, oh, that's nice. And I'm like, yeah, that's nice. But it kind of, you absorb it all, and then produce it, and you think, yeah, this image, the one we're looking at right now, is, yeah, that's nice. And you just kind of, that's what fuels my own photography and what I really aim to produce, and the images that I personally love to produce. So that's why this image specifically has become one of my own personal preferences, because it's everything that I've ever loved and wanted to try and produce in an image kind of there. Yeah, I really
wow, that's a really nice thing to achieve. And you know, your composition is lovely. If you'd rotated the camera further around to the right, I think you know, there would have been too much brightness, wouldn't there? And by keeping the composition you've got, I think you get a real sense of the occasion, what's actually going on there, because they're obviously in quite an enclosed area with the light beams coming in, and you wouldn't get those light beams if you rotated the camera around.
Exactly. You kind of, I think it's the part of the unknowing of what's off to the right and where this light is coming from. And also it focus, or at least how I wanted to make the viewer look at it, or how I was looking at it, it focuses your eyes on exactly what I'm trying to show, which is that driver in that car with these harsh light beams. If you go to the right slightly, you start to see the rest of the world. You start to see reality a little bit too much. And this, to me, is the most romantic moment. And especially trying to kind of keep that harsh line with one half of the image practically black, dark, and just really kind of nailing the image to that driver is, I just kind of want you to forget about the rest of the world and, you know, all of the other people around, and just look at this moment.
Yeah, and be as focused as those guys are, I guess.
Yeah, exactly that.
And so how did you assess the exposure of this shot?
So I always shoot in raw format, and I nearly always underexpose. So I wasn't too concerned, because I thought the only thing I do not want to do right now is overexpose. So I am always watching my light meter in my DSLRs. So I knew that I needed it to be slightly, as long as it was slightly below the center point, I knew I was safe, because I didn't want to sit at center and then, I don't know, just have his white overalls slightly blown out would frustrate me. So I always drop it ever so slightly below center. And then I think I probably took 2 shots, and then with the D850 and D5, I make sure that the image reviews immediately after I shot it, so I can quickly flick my eyes and think, yes, I'm fine, and carry on again. And just do exactly that. The mirrorless technology of the Z cameras now would probably make that part much easier. But it's just the way that I worked at the time, and I'd still like to work really with the DSLRs, that you just, I don't know, that light meter is what I go on and what I kind of know to how to produce my work. So yeah, just making sure in that moment I wasn't overexposing was my biggest concern. But I actually got it pretty spot on actually from out of camera.
That's great. One of the things I noticed about this image, I mean, it's beautifully exposed. Do you remember which metering mode you used?
I think it was matrix metering, but I would have to check the data, I think.
Yeah, but you rely on the light meter to get it right, and the view on the back of the camera.
Yep, primarily the light meter and what is in the back of the camera. I mean, I'm completely self-taught, so everything I've kind of learned is the easiest way to get the image that I needed out of it. So yeah, when it comes to some of the more in-depth technical side of things, I'm not very good, but my inspirations, I think, were all kind of film photographers and very basic photographers in the terms of technology. And I kind of try to, I don't know, that's how I end up shooting myself, or at least how I found myself shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's perfectly valid because, speed is of the essence. So it's often better to keep things simple and focus on, you know exactly what you're doing, and you can focus on the composition and get the shot that you want.
Exactly that. Sometimes it, like in this moment of this picture, I think I've said we had quite a lot, when I say long time, about 20 to 30 seconds of this moment to capture a multiple of shots. Sometimes I have literally a split second where you just have to point and shoot, and then you think that was the shot I wanted, and I've got a little bit longer, like a quarter of a second, to recompose and reshoot. And it depends. Some I don't have that second chance. Some moments I've missed it before I've even got my camera to my face. And especially at the end of an event like this, I miss so many pictures and I think, oh, that would have been a really good one. But it's just simply because they happen too quick. So everything, especially when I'm shooting at an event, so it's whether it was weddings or now events like the Revival, it is all about time. Time is the most important thing. Time and lighting, I guess, obviously. But yeah, just to try and capture those moments, because that is the issue with some of them, is these moments are fleeting and this will be your only chance to get them. So I'm constantly looking for them, and my brain is so tired by the end of the day.
Yes, I can imagine. And even you say you had a relatively long amount of time, 20, 30 seconds here. You don't know that you've got 20 or 30 seconds, do you? So you really have to nail that shot as early as possible.
Exactly.
And then everything else is a bonus, isn't it?
Exactly that. The very first thing you do is go as fast as you can to get your cameras like kind of shooting, and then you think, I've got a little bit more time. What do I do with it? And I definitely shot for way longer than I needed to on this actual moment, because I thought those fumes are still hanging around. I've still got a bit of time. And yeah, it kind of unfolded beautifully. But if I hadn't shot right at the very beginning as much as I did, then I probably would have missed this shot, because either the fumes have been too much or then too little, because the bit of magic about this is that that density, that I think for me that 3-person kind of you can see that the driver's really crisp and in the most light. Then the guy behind him is ever so slightly out of depth of focus and with a little bit less light, especially not on his face. And then the guy behind is just this blurred out figure with just these highlights. And without that density of exhaust fumes, I don't think it would kind of work that well. So at least I know in the images before and afterwards, they didn't. So yeah, it's about getting that image as quick as you can, because as you said, you do not know how long you've got to capture that moment.
Now, fortunately, you've got 2 cameras which are very good at focusing quickly and in low light. But how did you focus in this instance?
So when I focus near enough all of my shoots, especially with events, I make sure that I've got a center point of focus, and then I focus center and then recompose. So if I've only got the split second, usually my shot has my subject more or less in the center of the frame, and then it's the shots that I have that's a little bit extra time that I can recompose, which are the shots that I really like. And if I shoot, say, 5 frames, 10 frames of the same moment, it's probably the 3rd or 4th image that I really like, because that's where the moment is still happening and I've managed to recompose and get the image that I want and what I feel is the most beautiful out, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's almost like your brain is caught up with what's going on, and you've got your initial reaction shot, and then you've been able to kind of develop the theme a little bit.
Exactly. And then if I only manage to get that initial reaction shot, then sometimes that is just how I want it when I look at the picture later and think, yes, I managed to get that. I'm really glad I got that moment, but I will have to do a little bit of cropping just to make it the shot that I will imagine in my head and, nicely composed. Sometimes it's simply about getting that moment and then recomposing afterwards. But if I can do it all in frame, that's my goal. That's my main goal.
And when you're shooting events, generally, this sort of thing, do you shoot in manual exposure mode?
Yep, manual exposure. So the very first thing, switch it to manual, and then I have got full control over. I mean, primarily I do shoot with my aperture in mind. So if I had to put it on a mode, it would be aperture priority. But I just like to know that I have the full control over what is happening. So, for example, with this moment, I mean, I'd like to think that my camera kind of would know what I was trying to do, but I don't know. So by having it in manual mode, I can say, I want this at, I think it was probably either 1.8 or 2. and f-stop, and then just make sure that it is slightly underexposed so I can have that highlights, as crisp highlights, and then I'm not worried about that blackness going over to the left of the image.
Now, you touch very briefly on your processing, and obviously we don't want you to give away your magic sauce, but it looks like your approach to processing is quite low saturation or slightly reduced saturation.
So I'll give you I will tell you this one. I don't touch the saturation at all. This is
really?
That's something that people get wrong quite a lot. And no, I don't touch saturation at all. And it's, I mean, I was always, I suppose my grading got inspired from, if anything, it might even be starting to be dated, but I think I've managed to kind of hold on to it as my style now. So I'm kind of rolling with it. Because when I first created my style, it was about 5 or 6 years ago. And that was the time where Instagram filters had just started to become a thing. And this was a kind of a very normal kind of look. And I thought, oh, I really like this kind of hazy look. And I had no idea how to get it. I didn't understand Photoshop and editing enough to be able to recreate what I wanted. So over the years, this edit, which has now become mine, has become this edit I really like. And I don't think is dating, but just becomes kind of what I don't know, my work is known for, and what I like to produce and portray of that moment. It is a more romantic moment. If I brought out all the blacks and make sure you can see everything, I don't know, that the element of mystery kind of disappears, and that I don't know, feeling of being there. It was kind of, I don't know, it's not quite what I want the people to look at it to remember.
And it really suits the subject as well. Exactly.
Most of my subjects are people or vintage cars. And the minute I shoot a supercar, a modern car, I like the images because they still feel like mine, but I can see that it's not quite, I don't know, I don't want to say aggressive because that sounds negative, but kind of mean enough. And I don't know, there's something to do with supercars that you're like, yeah, this is really cool. And I don't know, my style, I mean, that is totally cool, but I know my style doesn't quite suit that type of subject as well as it does this more nostalgic feeling and this romantic feeling, which I really want to portray in my images.
So when you shoot a supercar, do you process the image in the same way then, or do you treat it in a different way?
Initially, I do it the exact same way as I would do with the rest of my images. Sometimes I might tweak it slightly, either depending on the client or depending on what I think of the image myself, because sometimes it is nicer to be able to see a little bit more of the shadows. But most of the time, my clients who hire me know my work and know it well, and so they're like, "Don't worry about it." And it's only sometimes they're like, "Oh, can we actually see a little bit more?" I'm like, "Okay then." But yeah, it's not. Luckily, it's not very often that I have to compromise. So yeah, I like that.
And I think that's a key point about putting the images that you love on your website, isn't it? Because that pulls your clients in who want what you do.
Exactly that. There's so in the talk I'm going to do next week, I will talk about when you're kind of talking with your clients, not everybody will like your work, and that is totally okay. There are people that hire me, or should I say don't hire me, because of my work. I still like my work and I'm still really pleased with what I produce, and I shouldn't have to change it to please everybody, because you'll never please everybody. So I think if you work to your interests and you work to your strengths, that is what will produce your best work. And I know that if I try to start changing what I do for specific clients or to produce something else, it won't be as, I won't like it as much. And I think that's when you start to kind of compromise yourself and what you enjoy for somebody else, which is not, especially when it comes to creativity, which is something so personal, I don't think you should do, or at least it's not something I like to do.
And I think it is really, really important to enjoy what you do when you're doing something creative, particularly because it comes across, and you've got to go out there and want to take photographs and try different things.
Exactly that. I mean, you have to be really, this is probably one of the hardest things about being a professional photographer. You have to love what you are shooting, or at least be in the mood as such to kind of get those creative vibes going. And sometimes, especially at something like Revival, is I'll be on site at 7 in the morning. I'm really tired. I've not had enough sleep, not had breakfast or coffee, and I have to start shooting, and I'm not ready for that. And it takes you a while to warm up and to really get into that motion of shooting, and have that kind of creative brain switched on. So the more you enjoy what you're doing, the quicker you get inspired. You're like, yeah, I'm enjoying this. And you kind of have that push and that energy and that motivation to look for those shots, to run to the end of the pit lane to get that, or to kind of, yeah, keep your eyes open all the time, rather than just thinking, where's the next coffee van at? I need a coffee.
Yeah, and you have, like you say, you have to seek out the moments, and you have to be ready to spot them, you know, not just think, oh God, there's another car firing up in that, in that shed.
Exactly. Yes. That's probably the thing. The hardest thing about events and long events is that you are constantly looking for images, and it makes me feel really rude when I'm talking to people, because some people will stop me. They're sometimes either current clients, past clients, potential clients, and they want to chat to me about a job or something. And I really think I need to talk to you, but at the same time, I really need to go and shoot this thing, because this moment is not going to move. And I miss quite a lot of moments from that. And sometimes I have to say to people, I'm like, I'm really sorry, I've got to run and just take this shot. And it's not because I don't want to talk to them at all. It's more that I know that at that moment, I'm still working for a client, in this case, you know, Goodwood. Mm-hmm. And I have to make sure I am getting these images, and not only for the client, but also to make sure that I'm producing the best work I can. And it's sometimes a really fine balance of trying to, not be rude, but say, this isn't going to happen again. I need to run.
Yeah, the light's perfect.
Exactly that.
It's been really lovely talking with you, and that is a fabulous image.
Thank you.
I really like it as well. So thank you for explaining it to us. No,
thank you so much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure to actually pick apart this image, which I've never really done, at least out loud. So thank you.
Great. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.